What happens when Peter Parker gets so injured that he cannot be Spider-Man? Well, we get Spider-Man Beyond. Today on Comicstorian, we're going to be covering a storyline known as Spider-Man Beyond. In order to understand the context of the story, you just need to know a couple of things. There's a character known as Ben Reilly, and Ben Reilly is a clone of Peter who did some very bad things, but eventually became a hero, and then became bad again, and then became a hero again. I mean, it's comic books. And on top of that, Peter Parker at one point owned a multi-billion-dollar corporation known as Parker Industries that he eventually had to sell off. That's really all the setup you need to know for Spider-Man Beyond, which is a storyline that came out about a year and a half ago, which covered the story of the Beyond character, the character that took over for Peter Parker while he was injured. So today we're going to be doing that audio drama for you, giving you a narration of that storyline. All alterations are to prevent copyright problems, and I do highly recommend checking out this book at your local comic book store. But let's get into the full story of Spider-Man Beyond. It was another morning as Peter Parker wakes from yet another nightmare. A nightmare where he couldn't save those close to him. He wants to pretend that it isn't real, but that doesn't change the fact that Harry Osborn is actually gone finally. Something that always helped take Peter's mind off of things was putting on the Spider-Man mask and doing what he could, even if it gets harder and harder to do it. But no matter how noisy those streets are, how loud the people are, there's never any traffic when he swings. It helps clear his mind. However, there's only one problem with that. There's another Spider-Man swinging through the city. Peter hurries up trying to catch the new guy asking, "What gives? Spider-Verse? Aren't you guys supposed to check in when we come to check on each other's dimensions?" The other Spider-Man doesn't answer him and instead turns back telling him, "Shh." Peter yells, "Oh, no. No one shushes Spider-Man." He tries to web up the imposter, but his web line just bounces off. Next, he pulls up the ground that they were standing on, and the imposter crashes through it like nothing, tossing back a spinneret drone to immobilize Peter. The drone latches on, coiling around Peter, telling him, "Please relax. You will be released in 1 hour. You should take this time to reflect on your life." And with that little run-in, the next morning, Peter Parker heads to ESU, trying to put together what exactly happened the day before. Who was this new Spider-Man? But as he heads into class, he hears someone calling out to him, and he turns back to see Ben Reilly, one of Peter Parker's clones from back in the day. One of the ones that has survived, has gone on to become the Scarlet Spider, to become the Jackal, and do various other things. Ben looks at him. "Hey, it's been a while. You got a second to talk?" So the two leave and they go grab some coffee with Peter folding his arms. And Ben stops him. "Yeah, it was me. I hadn't been out in a while. Plus, I was on a staff run, so I couldn't very well let you talk or they'd listen in." Peter stops. "Who's they? Have you ever heard of the Beyond Corporation?" Peter shakes his head no, and Ben tells him that they are a multinational conglomerate who has been on a spending spree for the last couple of years. They're buying up pieces of businesses. Roxxon, brands, Parker Industries. Nothing too important or dangerous, just old trademarks, like the one for the name and likeness of Spider-Man. Peter realizes what is going on. While he would never trademark the name Spider-Man, there was a period when Otto Octavius was in his body, and he created an entire industry with the Parker name on it. And in Parker Industries, he trademarked Spider-Man to be the bodyguard of Peter Parker. So of course Otto would trademark it all. He would gain copyrights. Ben goes on telling him, Beyond wants to get into the superhero business, but they want to do it right, and they want to put Spider-Man on their payroll. So here I am, to fill you in and let you know what's going on. Peter stops him. "No, that's not going to happen." Ben tells him, "Actually, Peter, I wasn't asking." Peter stares. "Oh. Beyond is going to pay me stupid amounts of money, and so they chose me this time. So I'll see you around, Peter." Later that night, Peter gets a notification that ESU is under attack by the UFOs. There, Vector tells everyone to keep looking, but X-Ray tells them that they got some bad information. It's not here. Peter arrives, giving off his normal quips, stating that there's a distinct odor, and it's not good. Like one of them is made of noxious gas. Ironclad tells him it wasn't funny the first time that they heard it. Peter asks, "Wait, first time?" That's when he looks over to see Ben in the Spider-Man Beyond outfit lifting up the debris that he was trapped under, tossing it aside casually. "Yeah, these guys don't think we're funny." Peter stops. "How did you get here so fast?" "I have a team now. They monitor the city and they tell me where to go." Vector shouts that that's enough. It's time for them to leave, and both Spider-Men state that they all know that isn't going to happen, right? Vector tells Ironclad to take them out and be cruel. And as Ironclad charges in and punches, Ben blocks it, pushing him back. Peter asks how did he, but Ben tells him, I've got kinetic-sensitive phone in my costume. Locks under impact. Pretty neat, huh? But we need to hurry and take these guys out. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and together. The two begin to turn the tables as two Spider-Men battle against the UFOs, with Vector yelling that it's time to finish this. He begins to create gas surrounding the two of them, and Peter begins to cough, asking what is this? X-Ray laughs. You're gonna love this! And as a cosmic beam shoots into the cloud, Ben tells him that his suit is telling him that the gas is radio volatile. That means an explosion goes off around both Spider-Men, and as X-Ray yells that he did it, Ben then punches him through the head, asking, did you know I have lead-lined gloves? No, my suit has all kinds of neat tricks. Peter then gets up coughing, taking off his mask. Yeah, that's pretty cool, and he begins to vomit. Ben grabs him, telling him that the Beyond suit is designed to handle these things. Your suit's just normal, Peter. Peter says that his spider sense warned him, but inside, the danger is inside. As Ben holds him up, keeping it together, Peter's vision begins to fade to black. A short while later, Aunt May's phone rings, and as she picks it up, Peter tells her, hey, I'm in the emergency room right now in McCarthy. I'm hurt, so come quick, okay? Before she could even ask, Peter hangs up, and Aunt May says, that wasn't Peter. At the hospital, Ben is hanging up, having called her on behalf of Peter. And the doctor yells, asking what happened to his brother here. The scans are showing toxosis or some kind of radiation poisoning, maybe both. But even before Ben can answer, Mary Jane runs in shouting, where is he? I am looking for Peter Parker. The doctor walks her over, telling her that Peter is in no shape to see anyone. And MJ says, don't tell me that, he just called me. The doctor tells her that it's impossible. Maybe she talked to his brother? MJ is confused, looking around the hospital. What brother? But the nurses begin to yell that he is convulsing, and as the doctors hurry off, Ben is nowhere to be found. In the ER, Peter's spider sense is blaring. It's telling him that he is in danger, but the danger, it's coming from inside of his body. His body is the danger. There's something inside trying to kill him. He's stabilized again, with Aunt May coming in asking, what happened? They said something about radiation. MJ tells her to keep her voice down. Peter is resting but he coughs. Ladies, one at a time. I'm not some piece of meat. Aunt May asks what happened, and Peter says, oh, just some villains, the UFOs. They tried to attack Empire State, and I was. MJ covers for him, stating that Peter was meeting with Professor Connors after getting his grades up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was exposed to, well, the doctor isn't sure. Aunt May scoffs, not sure isn't good enough. Where is this doctor? I would like a word. As she leaves, there's a knock on the door, and MJ looks back. You! What did you do to him? Ben walks in. Things got out of hand. I'm sorry. Is Peter going to be okay? MJ quietly yells that maybe he should have stuck around to find out instead of just dumping him on a curb. Ben, if you're gonna talk your way out of this one, you're gonna need to get those lips moving. If she starts swinging, I'm in no shape to stop her. Ben sighs. Look, if I could take his place, I would. It's just this Spider-Man thing. I still want to do it. It's even more important now that, well, you know. But I've decided, Peter, I can't be Spider-Man without your blessing. Peter asks, half alive, you want my permission? What happened to not asking? I didn't handle that right, Pete. I'm not used to getting the things I want or I need. I wasn't expecting people to help me, so I don't know how to ask. That's what my therapist says, at least. But this is me asking. Peter glares. It's hard when you're around. It really is. It feels like I'm being asked if I can share my life with you. I don't know if there's enough to go around, so it makes it even easier to ignore that this is even harder for you. But you deserve to be who you are. You deserve to do what makes you happy. You deserve to be Spider-Man. Ben smiles. Thank you. Get better, okay, Pete? Peter tells him, I'll be out there in no time, man. Don't get too comfortable on your own. And one last thing, be amazing. Ben nods and walks out as MJ says that she'd be mad at him right now if he wasn't the sweetest man alive. Peter doesn't answer right away, and MJ asks if everything's okay. Peter tells her, I'm waiting for Ben to get out of earshot. She asks why, and Peter tells her that he can't feel his body. MJ screams for someone to come and help him. and Peter's spider sense fires off as his whole body seizes up. The doctors and the nurses tell him to hang on, but in Peter's mind, he says he can't. His body is the danger. It's shutting down. He can't let it. He's got to escape. He's got to get away. And while Peter is fighting for his life, Ben follows up on the UFOs. After dispersing vapor and using the lead chafe to stun X-Ray, Vector shouts, "What are you doing? Spider-Man?" And as the smoke fades, Ben stands up with his new tech web shooters. Hell yes, Spider-Man! Since taking care of the UFOs in his last bout, Ben Reilly has been training with his employer, the Beyond Corporation, to be the best version of Spider-Man that the world has ever seen. But while watching Ben's progress in the monitoring room, his employer says that he seems to be moving quite well today. But his handler, Marcus, says that he isn't so sure. Even while fighting Misty and Colleen, he seems distracted. The employer steps out onto the training grounds, telling Misty and Colleen that will be enough. Ben needs to hurry along to his next appointment. "Walk with me, Ben." Ben jumps down. "All right, Maxine, but my appointment with Kafka is in just a few minutes." And Maxine tells him that she can wait. The two begin to walk through the Beyond facility, with Maxine stating that they have invested a lot into him because they believe in him. And between him and Beyond's resources, they can make a real change. Something that he shouldn't be taking lightly. Ben says that he is taking this seriously, and Maxine tells him good, because they can't have him taking the suit out again whenever he feels like it. He works for them. He doesn't do whatever he wants. Ben tries to defend himself, informing Maxine that there was an emergency, but she tells him to stop. She has no tolerance for his excuses. She isn't going to try and give him a hard time. She's going to try and make sure that he is really her guy for this. If not, they need to know that they can cut their losses and move on. Not everyone can do this, but she knows that he can, and he just needs to know that he can. Does he want to be Spider-Man, or does he want to be a scraggly, sad, not quite got it together, almost Spider-Man who shows up every once in a while? Ben stares. "I am Spider-Man." And Maxine smiles. "Good. That's all I needed to hear. Enjoy therapy." But while Ben is talking to the doctor, over at McCarthy Medical Center, Aunt May's patients are running thin with the progress that has been made on Peter's condition. If none of Peter's rich friends like Mr. Stark can't help, she's gonna make her own call. However, it isn't just Aunt May and MJ that are watching over Peter's comatose body. The Black Cat also seems to have taken an interest in Peter's situation. Back with Ben Reilly, he heads home after his session with the therapist to try and spend some time with Janine. But before the two of them could even settle in, he gets a notice that his help is needed. He throws back on the mask, heading into the teleportation room, telling her that he'll be back soon. They'll try and have a nice quiet date night or something. So a few moments later in Midtown, Ben swings around the outside of a laboratory, seeing several scientists on the ground. And the one that caused this, Morbius. Ben thinks to himself, wasn't Morbius doing good work? He's supposed to have gotten himself together after that last little setback. This does not look together. He jumps down. "Hey, Morbius. What's going on? Please don't be the one who has done all of this." And Morbius turns back, flashing his fangs. "Spider-Man!" charging in. Ben easily dodges the lunge, turning to Morbius. "You seem a little wild-eyed and covered in blood. Now might be a time to tell me what's going on." "Need your blood!" Ben webs him up, and thinking that he's secure, Ben begins to check on the scientist, stating, please be alive. Please, wait, Morbius?" But before Ben could fully sense Morbius coming into attack, he turns and Morbius punches him in the face, stunning him. He then grabs Ben from behind, pressing his fangs against his neck. "Forgive me!" And as Ben struggles to break free, there's a sudden slick as Morbius's fang pierce Ben's body. His vision begins to fade, and he begins to feel himself getting weaker and weaker as Morbius continues with his attacks. The suit is having a hard time keeping up with the toxins injected into him, so Ben tries his best to reason with Morbius. But Morbius growls, "Not working!" Ben tries to think about what to do, but that's when it hits him. Moments later, Ben swings into his penthouse apartment at the Beyond building, trying to hobble over to his teleporter. He looks back as Morbius has chased him. "Stop! You're not invited! I'm not even in the mood to give you jokes right now. The security system is a real deal. Stay there so I can get some help." Morbius jumps into the security system after him, setting it off. The lasers then cut across his chest, severing his arm, letting it hit the ground with a squishy thud. And with that, Morbius flees. As the medical teams arrive to take Ben away, Marcus tells Janine that she has to wait there. She begins to yell that that's crazy. Ben needs her, and Marcus says that he knows, but they won't let her into the medical facility with him. He promises to make sure that she is informed every step of the way. A few moments later, as the doctors begin to get Ben out of his suit, the nurses begin to get the antitoxin ready. But Director Danger tells them to wait. She has a question. What effects might they see if they don't administer the antitoxin this time? The doctor pauses. Excuse me? What would the effects be? Would he develop an entirely new vampire-based power set? Could it unlock new spider-vampire hybrid powers? This could be a research goldmine. The doctor says that they can't possibly know what would happen, and it would be highly unethical to even speculate. She thinks about it for a moment and then tells him that she agrees. Proceed with the antitoxin. Keep me informed of Riley's condition and notify me when we begin to process the Morbius parts. Meanwhile, back at McCarthy Medical, the window in Peter Parker's room slides open as Black Cat quietly slips in. She sits beside Peter's bed, telling him to come back. Please. And for a moment, Peter opens his eyes, lifting a finger. Black Cat shouts in surprise, and MJ slams open the door, running over to tell Peter to wake up. Peter closes his eyes again, and Black Cat says that she'll go. But MJ stops her. No, you can stay. It's the first time that I've seen him move since this started. I'll take whatever I can get. But if you're going to stay, you're gonna have to change those damn clothes before a nurse comes in. As Black Cat leaves, MJ looks at Peter. I'll grab however many ex-girlfriends I need to if you'll just move another finger. But back at the Beyond Corporation, Misty and Colleen try to talk to Morbius, but Morbius is still in his bitey phase. The two easily overtake him, punching and kicking until finally Misty deploys a spinneret drone to bind him. Misty then says that maybe they can try to figure out what's wrong with him, but Morbius growls, trying to bite at her again. At that moment, one of the security drones is shot and a woman walks in. Hello. Colleen cries, oh no, the spy drones! Monica, whatever shall we do? Monica says that she does love idle chit-chat, but there will be a replacement drone here any minute, so they need to be quick. What have you found? And that's when we discover that they don't quite trust the Beyond organization that they are working for. But later, back with Ben Reilly, he and Janine go out after Ben is released and he's given the night off. As they go out to the movies and take a nice walk into the park, Janine teases Ben about falling asleep in the theater and the two kiss. But sitting up in the trees, there's somebody watching them. Kraven says, "It is sweet, but those crazy kids should probably make that a goodbye kiss." And that concludes issue 77 and 78, but don't leave yet, viewers, we're not done. There's a spin-off issue that goes a little bit more into Misty and Colleen. The Beyond organization is kind of fishy if you haven't figured that out at this point. Whoever's running the show doesn't seem to care about the employees working underneath her. And Misty and Colleen also don't trust the Beyond organization, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. All the while, Ben Reilly's just trying to be the best damn Spider-Man that he can be. But like I said at the beginning, there is a spin-off issue. It's called 78 Point Bay, B-E-Y. Yes, I know it stands for Beyond, but they didn't spell out Beyond in the point. So let's go ahead and jump into 78 Point Bay. Misty and Colleen sit in Maxine's offices covered in blood. And Maxine says that they will take note that this isn't a question, and they will tell her exactly what happened. Colleen says that it all started when they were training with Ben in the morning. She was supposed to help Ben learn how to fight against the Avengers, but she didn't really, know what the Avengers did. So she kind of made up what she thought each of them would do. We then see what was happening, and as Misty got the drop on Ben, she asks, what did he learn? And Ben says, I have no idea. Colleen made some horror movie version of the Avengers for me to fight. Misty says, no, training-wise, and Ben says his spider sense. It's great for alerting him to threats, but with enough threats to keep it going off, he gets a little blindsided. Maxine walked up, stating, outstanding. Miss Knight, Miss Wing, a word please. And that was how the two ended up over at Maxine's office. She explained that there is a problem downtown that the Beyond organization is well positioned to solve, and she would like the two of them to solve it for her. There's a robot monster. They've codenamed it Obsidian Star, and it's on a rampage with no one to stop it. She thought this might be an excellent opportunity for a little positive word-of-mouth publicity for them. And before they say that this isn't in their contracts, is saving innocent people something that they need to be contractually obligated to do. Moments later, as Colleen is racing down the street in their experimental car, Misty looks at the list of things that they were given to test, such as an antimatter bomb. An antimatter bomb! And after putting that away, Misty loads in the pocket battlefield cube that they need to close for this to work. Colleen steps on the gas and swerves, giving Misty the shot. And as she fires the pocket battlefield cube, it begins to suck the Obsidian Star and themselves into it. As the world is warped around them, The car stops and Misty reads the instructions. Pocket battlefield, effective threat radius 3 meters. That was not 3 meters. It looks like the gizmo worked a little too well. Now we've ended up getting ourselves contained along with the target. Colleen looks around asking where are they, because it looks like one of the simulations that they bullied Ben back with back at the HQ. Misty looks up. Yeah, it looks a lot like your sim, the Avengers murder mansion, or at least your idea of what the Avengers live in. Colleen laughs. Yeah, this is gonna suck. But hey, I did a really good job making up a murder mansion. So Misty calls in asking what the hell are they doing, and Maxine tells them that the research team is looking into it. So far, they can only assume that with Obsidian Star's exotic energy source, it reacted to the pocket battlefield. Misty says that exotic better not mean what she thinks it means. Maxine tells her, extraterrestrial. The pocket battlefield is built from a retrieved Kree tech. For them to get out, they must find Obsidian Star and remove its energy source. Misty sighs. Of course we have to. The two kick down the door and are greeted by a masked man with a shotgun that Misty blows apart with her new kapow high explosive rounds. For the most part, Misty and Colleen test out an assortment of Beyond tech on all of the horror versions of the Avengers, from an insecticide on the zombie wasp to a can of whoops, all scorpions! But after killing the Avengers in many different ways with the Beyond tech, Misty realizes that they've been carving through Avengers, but they haven't seen Obsidian Star. Colleen stops. Wait, Maxine said that the Obsidian Star's power source was interacting with the pocket dimension. Like some kind of feedback loop or something? That would mean Obsidian Star is not trapped in the sim like we are. Obsidian Star is the sim. Misty asks what does that mean, and Colleen yells that it's a haunted house, do the math. As a realization kicks in, the two scream a slew of obscenities as the house begins to collapse in on itself and they are attempting to escape. Misty takes out the last thing that she hasn't tested yet, and it's the antimatter bomb. She tosses it back into the house and they leap out just as the do not use under any circumstances antimatter bomb triggers. As the smoke clears, Misty and Colleen can see Obsidian Star's body lying on the ground. Misty reaches down to try and pull out the power source when Maxine asks what happened there. As we are now back at the office and we are watching everything that had happened with Maxine, Misty, and Colleen. And Misty asks, what do you mean, Maxine? Weren't you recording everything that had happened? Maxine says that as it turns out, detonating a prototype antimatter bomb messes with their electronics. They lost contact after they used it. So where is the power source? Colleen yells, what power source? Misty was digging around in that thing's chest for ages. It was grotesque. There's nothing. Maxine pauses, very suspicious. Nothing? Misty and Colleen tell her, nope, not a thing. Even though in actuality, they did find something. Just not something that they wanted Maxine to have. Maxine says, so after millions of dollars of prototype weapons were destroyed, you brought me nothing. Misty gets up asking, is that an accusation? Surely you aren't worried that it isn't just another exotic power source, right? Maxine stares and Misty tells her, that's what I thought. I'm taking a sick day, by the way. Colleen stands up. Yeah, I'm taking 2, mental health. And the next day at an undisclosed location, Monica takes the Obsidian Star's power source stating, yeah, I think I know just where this needs to go. As Ben's suit is scanned inside of Beyond's lab, he shouts in pain, asking what kind of a firmware update are they doing to him, because he doesn't really think that it should be shocking him. The doctor tells him that after the Morbius incident, some upgrades were to be expected. So once done, Ben scoffs that they could have done the update in his sleep, would have been a lot less painful. If they've forgotten, he's a bit of a genius. Marcus informs him that in case he's forgotten, Beyond and its board members have invested a considerable amount of money into him. So when Spider-Man is out there, he is representing Beyond's interests in the best possible light. Ben suits up telling him that they chose the other guy because he is too damned bullheaded and strong-willed. His job isn't to help Beyond look good, it's to help the people. Marcus tells him, actually, Ben, it's both. And don't go too far. Your patrol starts in half an hour. After leaving the Beyond Corporation and making a stop to check in on Peter Parker, Ben Reilly is called away when he overhears on the news that there's a bank robbery happening and a high-speed chase is currently in progress. As to not draw too much attention to the situation, he steps out stating, get better, buddy. Consider that wish officially made, as he webs out of the window. A few short swings later into downtown, Ben finds the speeding armored truck webbing up the people inside, slowing them down. But seeing that the truck is now continuing to barrel down the road towards a group of people, Ben web launches himself forward, grabbing the child, who wasn't quite fast enough to get out of the way, and safely moves them out of the way of the destruction. Ben tells the kid, "Hey, nice to meet you. Pretty scary, huh? Bright side, you can all tell your friends that you met Spider-Man today." Marcus radios in that he did an incredible job saving everyone, but they've got another job for him. Beyond board member Andrew Ayers pinged security about a possible break-in. Doors to his penthouse are in lockdown mode, and you're the closest there is to it. So Ben hurries over, opening up the door through the balcony, calling out to Andrew when he hears a faint, struggling voice calling out for help. Ben yells, "Don't worry, I'll be there in a second. Stay calm, and we'll have this taken care of in no time." But as he opens up the door to where he thought he heard the voice, he finds Andrew passed out on the floor with a tranq dart in his neck. Before Ben could even guess who was actually calling for him, his spider sense begins to go crazy, and the entire apartment explodes. When he comes to, he looks up to see Kraven the Hunter standing over him as he shouts, "This was too much! You!" Ben gets up swinging and misses, and Kraven punches him, telling him, "I wish to bestow upon you a gift, the offering of my greatest hunt of cleansing." Kraven lunges at him. "I heard the Spider-Man was now coming under the heel of corporate masters. Figured it would be the perfect bait to lure the great spider out." "You really think of me as great? Really?" But Kraven punches into him, telling him, "You have great spirits. You make light of such heavy work. It is something that I greatly admire." Quickly running out of options to fight back in his dazed state, Ben runs towards the window, jumping out, but within seconds, he's riddled with tranq darts. He lands onto the building hard. I should have knew there was a trap waiting. Already beginning to feel lightheaded. Not from blood loss. There's something else going on. He looks at his hands as they begin to bend and move like they're underwater. I need to focus! 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 And then with a thundering voice, Kraven calls out, "You must rejoice!" With a flaming tiger head and now wings, Kraven tells him, "Your great awakening is about to begin." Ben's suit tries to filter out the toxins that Kraven is pumping into him, but with so much in him, the suit and his spider senses are in overdrive. He tries to get up and swing away, but he ends up stumbling off of the building and onto another one. He looks around to try and find another way down, but then he feels his feet sinking into the building. He begins to crawl out, telling himself, "Come on, Peter! Wait, Ben! I'm Spider-Man!" As he gets out, he sees himself, or at least a hollowed out version of himself. He sees that he's not Spider-Man, he's not even a man, he is a shell, a blank canvas, a rough sketch of a greater man. He gets back up and begins to move again, stating that he needs to find somewhere to rest. But then, he passes out, falling off of the ledge of the building. Meanwhile, back at Beyond, Marcus shouts asking, "Can somebody get eyes on Ben, please? We can't keep this away from Maxine for very long, and if we don't find him, we're all gonna wish that we're the ones who disappeared." But then Janine calls, and before Marcus can even speak, she tells him to tell her what is going on. 1 minute her apartment is swarming with Spider IT guys, and then the next they're all rushing out stating code blue. So help her. If he doesn't tell her what is happening, she will drop kick him so hard in the chest, she swears to God she'll do it. Marcus says, "Look, there's a situation unfolding, but we're handling it. As soon as I know more, I'll let you know." And he hangs up on her, asking one of the researchers if there's any update, but his phone rings again. He answers it, telling Janine that he assures her he will get back to her when he can, but right now he has more pressing matters to attend to. Maxine tells him, good to know. If she was Janine, that would be most unfortunate. Luckily, she has some questions, and they are answered. Back with Ben, he slowly begins to wake up, groggy from the high dose of tranquilizer running through his system when he hears a voice. He looks over to see a talking turtle, vulture, and maybe a horse. The turtle says that his name is Doug, and the others state that their name is Adaob and Basir. They were captured a few days ago. But as Ben gets closer, they revert back to their original selves as Beyond employees, and Doug says that he doesn't look too good. They're from the pharmaceutical division, and they've been working on a cure-all for migraines and head colds, and they were using it for hangovers, but same ballpark. Ben takes the pill, stating that he's putting a lot of trust into a talking turtle, but he doesn't have much choice. Ben then steps out onto what appears to him as an oil rig, stating that he's feeling like they're not in Manhattan anymore. And Kraven attacks, narrowly missing, stating, "Please tell me the flames spoke truth to you. The corporation is using you as a dog." The two struggle and Ben yells, "Beyond has its issues, but what gig does it? At least they don't want to kill people." As Ben falls over, he pulls Kraven with him, and he manages to spin Kraven around, slamming him into the ground, but Kraven gets back up. "This is the belly of technological perversion. We both shall be remade whole. Here, I will awaken the great animal within." Ben laughs, telling him that he did awaken some old nightmares, but thanks to Doug, who may or may not be a giant talking turtle, I'm back to my old self. In a lot of pain, sure, but at least I can see the research plant we're in. Kraven lunges with a knife, asking, "Who holds your leash?" And Ben jumps over, kicking him, telling him, "I'm my own spider. And if all it takes to break your great warrior spirit is a cup of algae and a cell phone, maybe you're not the great hunter that you thought you were." Kraven falls into the algae pit, pulling out a small device. "I will not be tamed. I will remain unbroken." Ben yells for him to wait, but as Kraven presses the button, he blows himself up. Later, back at Beyond, Marcus says, "Yes, Miss Danger, he's being looked into. He's also being given a week off." Maxine tells him that this is a curious disciplinary action. Usually when a dog misbehaves, you tighten the leash. Beyond might have invested a lot of resources into this project, but if they need a hard reboot, they will certainly do it, and she will be in touch. As Maxine hangs up, she says that she's sorry. She doesn't like handling other departments' business in front of others, but this was a particularly interesting situation. The lawyer tells her that they understand. Picking up where they left off, this is a cease and desist. We will make sure that this Brooklyn Spider-Man is taken care of before he can even think of becoming an issue for Beyond. And if you're wondering who the Brooklyn Spider-Man is, of course that's Miles Morales. So next up we're gonna have Ben Reilly versus Miles Morales. But now we're gonna go into 80 Point Beyond. It's a spin-off issue that tells you a little bit more of the other things happening now that Ben Reilly has taken over. The first couple of issues of this were telling us more about the Beyond Corporation and the other people that they've hired. This particular issue is going to be about Aunt May and Otto Octavius. Let's get into it. Day and night, Aunt May sat beside Peter's bed while doctor after doctor came in and told her that they don't know how to help bring Peter out of his coma. Finally getting fed up with no answer, she kisses him on the forehead, telling him that she is sorry for doing this and hopes that he understands. But she is backed into a corner, and she's going to be taking things into her own hands and getting help from an old friend. So later that night, Dr. Otto Octavius kisses May's hand, stating, "You humble me with your beauty." She tells him that it's good to see that he still has his gentleman's air about him. But enough of the flattery, they have work to do. The two go back to ESU where Peter was attacked, and they begin to look for clues. Octavius scans the area, stating that they must collect samples to see if there's anything that could help her nephew. And after picking up a few, Octavius brings May to one of his many safe houses for further testing. What they found were faint traces of a rare air pollutant found only in the industrial district, as well as radiation. One suited up as Doc Ock, Octavius follows the traces to an apartment building that obviously is a front for a criminal organization. May tells him that it looks just like a normal apartment building to her. Perhaps they should try a lighter touch before just bursting in. She rings the buzzer and the landlord says who's there, and May tells him, actually, she was wondering if she could trouble him to possibly look at some of their rooms. The landlord lets them in, stating that there were 4 weirdos who previously rented this room, and it looked like they ran into some trouble with the law. One of them was named Simon. Octavius tells her, of course, radiation, poison gas, Simon. It must have been the UFOs. Where did the police? The landlord stops him, telling him that it wasn't any police that came. It was something called Infinite Solutions. Took the UFOs and cleaned up the place. Except that his cousin crashed here and trashed the place shortly after. May takes a scanner and says that she may have found something, and Octavius looks over, telling her, yes, the discoloration is most likely some byproduct of X-rays radiation. However, we would need a larger quantity to try and replicate anything in the lab. As the two leave, May asks, what is Infinite Solutions? Octavius looks online, stating that it would seem that they are charged with holding superpowered individuals awaiting trial or transfer them to prison. But only a fool would think that. So after getting the address, May walks into Infinite Solutions, and the security guard asks if there's anything that he can help her with. She says hello. They were hoping that they would be able to speak with her grandson. The folks at the jailhouse told them that he was taken here. The guard tells her that there are no unscheduled visitations. If they wish to see her grandson, they'll need to make an online appointment. May stops him, Surely there could be someone back there that we could speak with. But the guard taps on the no unscheduled visitor sign, and the two have to leave. Outside, Octavius says that they went with her lead, now it is time to take his lead. And he grabs May with one of his metal arms and begins to scale the building. As they get in, she looks around stating that this place is pretty intense for a rehabilitation center. Not loving the idea what they might find deeper inside, and Octavius tells her that they have to be efficient. The both of them must be prepared to get their hands dirty. The scanner is showing that they have samples nearby that they're going to need. One to the west, one to the north. At that moment, armed guards walk by and Octavius follows them to see a bunch of prisoners, including X-Ray, working out. But before they could do anything, another guard spots them. Octavius quickly dispatches of him as he begins to fire. The alarms begin to blare all around them, so Octavius tells May to take the guard's keycard and go to Vapor's cell and collect her sample. They'll meet in the security room later. She runs off yelling, "Please be careful! I want to thank you properly after we get out of here." Octavius climbs down into the rec room, and X-Ray cracks his knuckles, telling the guard that he can easily handle this if they turn off his dampeners. The guard stares. "Don't make me regret this." And as the dampener is powered down, X-Ray unleashes a cosmic blast, tearing through the room. Octavius slams him into the wall, telling him, "I have come to collect something of actual value." The two begin to go back and forth, exchanging blows, but Octavius grabs X-Ray, throwing him into the air, letting him come crashing down. After picking him up one more time, Octavius begins to shoot X-Ray with his lasers until he passes out and extracts the sample that he needs. At that moment, the guards surround him, telling him to freeze, and Octavius tells them, "You seem to have mistaken me for one of the inexperienced here. Let me do the honor of correcting that error." Meanwhile, over in the holding cells, May sees Vapor and says that she hates to bother. But does she have a moment? Vapor gets out of her bed, stating that she is a long way from the bingo hall, Grandma. And May says that they usually close up around 7. She's just an old bat with enough energy to still hang out past sundown. Vapor laughs. "I like you, but you must need something to get this deep past security." May holds up a photo of Peter, stating that this is her nephew. He drives her crazy, but she loves him dearly. He was a student, and a couple of weeks back, he got roughed up pretty bad by her and her friends when they fought Spider-Man. Vapor says that she's sorry, but she's a bad guy. Sorta comes with the job. May tells her that she isn't a bad person. She just makes mistakes. She also knows people can get caught in the crossfire sometimes, and Peter, he's one of them. She just wants to help him. The doctors don't know what to do. All she needs is a sample. As May opens the cell, Vapor says, "Well, I don't have anything better to do." "Sure, Grandma. Just don't go telling people that the UFOs went and gone soft is all." After getting the sample, May says that she'll tell everyone that it was one hell of a fight. Later in the security offices, Octavius grabs the guard, shouting, "You're all worms! This is all a sham! What other secrets do you hide? What masters pull your strings? Tell me!" He begins to look through the computer, realizing that it's a trail of one shell company to another to... no. He turns back to the warden, asking, "Do you know what was stolen from me? Do you know why you're about to be skinned alive?" But May steps in, stating, "That was not a part of this plan. Let these men go, Otto." Octavius clears his throat. "Forgive me, but I told you once before. This is the man I've always been. My nature. I was doing what I must to help you." She slams the sample into Octavius, stating that he stopped helping her the moment he found something on that computer. She was a fool to think that he could change, and she's an even bigger fool for not knowing that from the start. This is goodbye, and we won't be seeing each other again. The next night, May sits at home trying to figure out what to do next when she receives a call from the hospital. The doctors inform her that there's been a breakthrough. Some anonymous delivery was made containing, well, a comprehensive cache of data detailing the compounds involved in Peter's illness. She rushes to the hospital and opens up Peter's door, standing in shock because Peter is sitting up on his bed in near perfect health, asking, "Did you happen to get the number of the bus that hit me, May?" But later that night, the Beyond guards begin to call in for backup as they're quickly taken out. Octavius grabs one and the man says, "Please, just take the access card. It'll let you into all the systems. Don't hurt me." Octavius takes the card, telling him, "Seems you've learned the value of self-preservation. Good dog." He begins to look through the terminal. No, Spider-Man and Parker could not have been that stupid. They allowed Beyond to purchase the remains of Parker Industries, the company that I built. Their Spider-Man isn't superior. He is a copy of all of the work that I did. Otto Octavius does not stand for plagiarism. I will remind them, while I will always remain superior. After a fierce run-in with Kraven the Hunter, Ben Reilly is already sent back to the field when his handler Marcus tells him of a monster attacking Brooklyn. While viewing images of this creature, Marcus says that it calls itself Rhizome, and that this would be a great opportunity to show that Spider-Man cares about the whole city, not just Queens. Ben says that it's a little weird to refer to people losing their homes as an opportunity, but he's got it, don't sweat it. Marcus then says that there's one more thing. They estimate a 79% chance that he may cross paths with the unauthorized Spider-Man that is operating out of Brooklyn. If he does, he is contractually obligated to enforce Beyond's trademark. Maybe Ben could suggest a name change. Stryker and Stinger both tested well, so let him know that Beyond is serious about protecting its intellectual property. Ben glares, telling him, right, I'll get right on that. So after a short jetpack ride later, Ben finds that Rhizome has moved to another location after destroying most of everything within its reach. As he lands, he looks around at the now depressed individuals who have lost their homes. He asks them which way the monster went, and they tell him that they are a little too busy trying to find if anything of their lives is left intact. Is he here to help them? Ben looks at all the downtrodden people. It's not really my assignment. One of the people then asks, assignment? Who the hell are you? And another voice yells, yeah, that's what I want to know too. As Miles Morales swings down grabbing Ben, he says that the voice is similar but different. And if he isn't OG Spider-Man, who are you? I've already got very little patience for Spider-Man imposters. Ben smacks Miles' hand away, shouting, do not call me that! And the two quickly begin to throw punches at each other. During the scuffle, Ben stops. Look, this is crazy. Pete wouldn't, crap, big mouth. And that causes Miles to stop. Wait, are you really a friend? Ben tells him that friend might not be the right word exactly. He's more like an estranged brother. But he's doing this with his blessing since their friend is in the hospital. Now Miles is really taken aback. In the hospital? Ben tells him, yeah, it's pretty bad. But that's a long story for another time. Beyond Corporation helped me, and Miles stops. Wait, Beyond Corporation? You're working for those fools trying to sue me for being Spider-Man? But before Ben could even argue that he doesn't know anything about that, there's a scream as a piece of a building begins to fall. They rush over to catch it from falling on a group of workers, and Ben asks, how about we stop arguing for 1 minute and track down the killer Rutabaga? So a few minutes later downtown, the killer robot-like monster Rhizome rips through another building when it spots the two Spider-Men. It begins to shout, the spiders cannot stop Rhizome! Rhizome breaks all buildings! Ben and Miles get to work trying to web the creature up, but it just breaks through their webbing with very little effort. When the webs don't work, Ben tries his fists, and well, that's like punching a tree. Ben yells that he's going to try one more thing, casting out a wide web net, wrapping it repeatedly around Rhizome, just long enough to slow its movements down a bit. Miles then jumps in to deliver a venom blast to the chest, and when he does, his hand ends up punching through the roots, and he hits something mechanical. He gives whatever it is that he's holding another venom blast shock. Then there's a quiet explosion from inside a Rhizome as it falls and begins to wither. As the tendrils pull back, the two see a man with all of these enhancements grafted onto his skin. Miles tells Ben that he's seen something like this before, or at least a version of it. A computer program that he's tangled with, called the Assessor. His specialty is cooking up super-powered monsters. He's bad, real bad, Spider-Man. Ben says that he should report this to Beyond, and Miles says that he'll follow up on a lead and shut down the Assessor for good. Ben says that maybe they'll cross paths again, but Miles tells him that as long as he's trying to serve him papers, they're good on that. Ben returns back to Beyond, where he finds Marcus missing, and in his place is Maxine. Maxine informs Ben that Marcus is undergoing disciplinary action because he failed to properly facilitate his latest operation. She's here to stress upon him the importance of all mission objectives. Ben begins to freak out, asking if she's talking about the trademark garbage. I did what I could do. What am I supposed to do? Beat up a teenager? Maxine stares for a moment and says that Beyond has given him a lot. They've done so because they see something in him, more than just an experiment. Now he has to ask himself if he's willing to do what is necessary to be a hero. Or is he gonna throw all of that away? A short while later in the monitoring room, one of the operators tells Maxine that she was right. All sorts of investigative hits here. Otto Octavius is definitely digging around Beyond. She picks up a canister that contains a swirling mass, stating that if they have an octopus problem, fortunately for them, Beyond specializes in solutions. Now we cut over to the hospital where Peter Parker is staying, and he's still recovering after just getting out of his coma. They've removed him from the ICU at McCarthy Medical and they placed him into a room for recovery. As he slowly drifts off to sleep again, his neighbor asks if he can remove the curtain, and Peter says, actually, But before waiting for an answer, the old man pulls the curtain back, telling him, "That's better. My name is Rico. I've just been watching the highlights to the game. Have you seen this? It's unbelievable." Peter looks at him. "No, I haven't. I've been a little busy, so." But that's when the nurse comes in stating, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Sotomayor, it's time for you to come with me." Rico asks, "What, I'm being moved again? Nobody told me." And the nurse tells him, "Terribly sorry. This way, please." As Rico is wheeled out, there's a knock at the door, and MJ comes in asking how Peter is feeling. Peter tries to sit up, but he screams in pain as he falls back, stating that it hurts so much to even sit up. While the two begin to talk, Peter hears the nurse from before outside in the hallway. "I'm terribly sorry, but there's no one here by that name. We don't have a Rico Sotomayor. I'm terribly sorry. Terribly sorry." Peter says, "Wait, that orderly is lying. He just took that woman's husband out of here." And MJ tells him that she's sure that there has to be a mistake. He should get some rest, and she'll sit with him until he falls asleep. However, the nurse from before then walks in stating, "I'm so sorry, but visiting hours are over." MJ tells him that it's not even 8 yet, but the man says that there are special circumstances today. "Terribly sorry. Terribly sorry." MJ looks back at Peter, who has already fallen asleep, telling him to just get better. She's going to go see about these circumstances. So a short while later, Peter wakes up to a new neighbor yelling that she's supposed to have been discharged 2 hours ago. What are these bozos thinking? They can't. But then the nurse from before walks in again. "Time for you to come with me. Terribly sorry. Terribly sorry." The woman yells that she's supposed to go home. Where is she going now? And Peter yells with her as he sits up, but the pain comes back, knocking him out. When he wakes up again, he sees that nurse putting on gloves, telling him that it's time for him to come with him. Peter yells, "Wait, where the hell are we going?" But as his vision begins to fade, the man says that he had to increase the dosage. "Terribly sorry. Terribly sorry." Peter begins to see bits and pieces as his bed is rolled down a dark corridor. And when he stops, he sees the nurse step into the shadows. The nurse says, "We had to come down in the darkness so I could show you my true shape, where I can feast." A hulking creature steps out of the shadows, with Peter seeing a pile of discarded bones and the creature stating that he can only feed in his true shape. And the light burns like wildfire. Suddenly a voice says that that's good to know, and MJ uses the flash of her phone to stun the creature. It screams in pain, chasing after her as she runs towards the light switch, but the creature manages to grab a hold of her leg. MJ grabs a wrench, cracking the monster's hand to free herself, and as she gets to the wall, the creature grabs her again. She yells, "Whatever the hell you are, you tried to eat the wrong guy." And suddenly a switch is flipped and all of the observation lights turn on, burning the creature until it falls into a pile of ash. Peter hobbles out of bed. My hero, before collapsing on the floor. MJ runs over, telling him that someday he's going to learn how to rest, and if he doesn't, it's going to kill him. Now, after dealing with a man-eating creature, taking patients away and killing them, Peter found himself finally having a night of rest when suddenly he hears, "Peter Benjamin Parker!" Peter rolls over in his bed, holding his pillow as a large woman walks in, telling him, "I know you are not going to make me tell my good friend May Parker that you gave up on physical therapy on the first day." Peter groans. I can't. Not today. Come back when I'm feeling better." She gives him the remote to call the nurse station, stating that quitting isn't an option when he still has folks out there that still care about him. Push that button when you're ready to do work and get better. As the nurse leaves, Peter rolls back onto his back, going through the messages on his phone from MJ and Aunt May. And then he sees their receipt from an online auction for a Spider-Man cosplay bundle. He stares. Wow, I must have really been out of it when I ordered this. But suddenly his spider sense blares like a siren in his head. To others, it seems like he's having random blackouts, but in reality, after his run-in with the UFOs, it left him more damage than anyone could imagine. They used a radiovolatile gas, which combined with his unique physiology, makes his normally dependable spider sense take on a life of its own and attack him. He tries to clear his mind to calm things down, but the spider sense has a mind of its own as it begins to play out twisted visions in Peter's mind. A short time later, the nurse returns to find Peter sitting in a chair by the window, stating that it's nice to see him no longer in pain, but she must remind him that he needs physical therapy, not retail therapy, Peter. As the nurse begrudgingly hands Peter his package, he tells her not to worry. He'll be ready in no time. Just give him a day or two. Once the nurse leaves, Peter takes out his new cosplay costume, crawling out of the window to take in the night's air and feel somewhat normal. He gets up stretching, stating, "Who needs Beyond's fancy upgrades? I'm still a little stiff, but I better get started. Won't be long until Spider-Ben is going to need Spider-Man." But then there's a cry for help as Spider-Man springs into action. Two carjackers pushing a woman out of the way to take her keys, jumping into the car as Peter steps in the way to stop them. But remembering that his outfit is just a cosplay costume and that his web shooters aren't really web shooters, Peter is just flung across the parking lot as he's struck by the carjacker's Jeep. The carjackers get out asking, "Yo, what is Spider-Fake doing here?" They then begin to stomp and kick Peter while he's down when there's a sudden silhouette that comes running in out of the flames of the wrecked car. Peter tells himself that the crooks seem a bit more heroic, and they also seem a bit bulletproof. Captain America jumps to the fire, yelling out, "That is enough!" Peter tells himself, "Okay, alright, that makes a lot more sense." Cap takes down one, but as he goes to the second, he manages to fire a shot aimed at Peter. Peter watches as the bullet gets closer, but right behind it, the shiny shield of Captain America goes in to block it. It does deflect the bullet, but it also cracks Spider-Man in the head. Cap runs over. "I'm sorry, I thought, you usually duck." As he's knocked back out, Peter's spider sense goes back to playing tricks on him. He begins to see visions in his unconscious state of Uncle Ben from when he was a kid and got in trouble for stealing a piece of bubblegum. Uncle Ben told him that sometimes when people do the right thing, it's hard. Sometimes it costs them something. They can't do the right things because it's easier. Sometimes being a good person means never giving up on those hard marches or turning away from the right thing just because it hurts. You'll have to decide one day if you're strong enough to pay that price or leave it for someone else to pay for you. These lessons were hard won. Never give them up, Peter, whatever the cost. Okay? Don't forget them. Young Peter says he won't, not until the day he dies. So while sitting in his room, Peter calls out to Spider-Man. "Come on, Webhead! I can feel you! I need you back! I want it again! I need it! Whatever the cost, I can be Spider-Man again!" The shade that represents Spider-Man begins to crawl through the window, and Peter yells, "I can take it! Never give up!" And then he feels himself being swallowed up by his own self, by his own shade, and he rips himself free, shouting, "Never! I'll never give up!" While Peter Parker is still recovering in the hospital, Ben Reilly has been tasked with overwatching New York as Spider-Man. Backed by the Beyond Corporation and heavily invested in, Ben has to follow the guidelines that Beyond has set out for him if he wants to continue operating as the web-slinging hero. And some of those guidelines involve therapy with Dr. Kefka. As Dr. Kefka says to focus and tell her what he sees, Ben tells her that he sees his uncle, but his face is gone. Dr. Kefka tells him to open up his eyes, asking what does he see now, when suddenly the empty face is filled with Uncle Ben's face, but looks disappointed. She then asks how does that make him feel, and Ben says overwhelmed. Overwhelmed that someone could believe in him so much that it makes him want to do what's right. As Ben begins to break down, Dr. Kefka tells him, "Good. That is great progress. How are you feeling, Ben?" He gets up smiling, telling her, "Honestly, amazing. Absolutely top-tier breakthrough here. Can't thank you enough, Doctor." Feeling a bit more refreshed on his outlook on work and life, Ben decides to take Janine out for dinner to celebrate. After getting dressed for a night out, the two sit in the back seat of their self-driving Beyond car, with Ben asking how is she adjusting to everything. The fancy pad, Marcus, a staff on-call self-driving cars. Still weird, isn't it? She tells him that it's something. Wouldn't say that it's perfect, but at least they're doing okay. Ben tells her, yeah, Beyond is far from perfect. The whole situation with Miles was rough, and don't even get me started with Maxine. But despite all of that, they let him go out and do some real good. Janine leans in, explaining that if they're landing on good things to add, she has something else. But at that moment, Ben's phone rings and he asks how badly will he pay for answering this. She tells him it'll be a swift death. He picks up the phone, stating he cannot express how bad his timing is on this, and Marcus explains that he's going to have to put a pin on date night. They need him ASAP. A major player that spent the last week making life hell for Beyond just reappeared. Ben asks what kind of player, and Marcus explains one that has 8 arms. Otto Octavius is currently holed up in the Beyond data center in Midtown. A lot of intel in there, stuff that Marcus doesn't even know about. They need Ben over there protecting those assets now. As Ben hangs up, Janine tells him that it's okay, they'll get dinner another time. This is one of his get out of jail free cards. Use it wisely. Meanwhile, over at the data center, Otto is holding the workers hostage, yelling that this entire empire is built on lies and thievery. Your masters will return what you have taken from me. As Otto works one of the terminals, a worker tells him that he might want to rethink that. It won't end well, and Otto turns to him. Silence! Beyond thought that they could elude me by placing my most cherished secrets in a place free from outside communications. But there is no place that these arms cannot reach. I've seen how Beyond really operates, how they really think. As the defenses surrounding a small drive are brought down, Otto walks over about to take it when a voice tells him, "Oh no, look out." At that moment, Ben swings in, kicking Otto to the ground, telling the workers to hurry and get out of here. He'll take care of things. As Ben tries to web up Otto, the mechanical arms stop his webbing. We both know who the superior Spider-Man is, but I am here for a different reason. Something was taken from me, something that I wasn't even aware of until I stumbled upon one of your corporate masters' hidden side adventures. Otto begins to beat into Ben when suddenly his mechanical arms lose power. What is the meaning of this? And Ben tells him, nothing to be ashamed of. Happens to everyone. But in case you're wondering, it's a bit of anti-Ock tech that the folks in the weapon divisions shipped up. Tagged you with it a while ago. Otto begins to take off his harness. No matter. What I have come for is already in reach. He picks up the drive, reactivating the building's defenses, and Ben's spidey senses go crazy. All the automated turrets begin to spring out, firing non-lethal rounds at Ben, pinning him down until he finally collapses. Otto turns off the weapons, informing him, "This is merely a prelude, boy. I pray for your master's sake that they hire someone better equipped for when I return." After blacking out, Ben begins to awaken in the medical wing where Marcus finishes patching him up, and Ben asks, how bad are things looking? Marcus says that he doesn't know the specifics of what was in the black box, besides it contained information that Beyond deems supremely sensitive, and it is now in Otto Octavius' hands. But before Ben could even really respond, a hologram of Maxine appears, stating that they hired him because they believed that he was the right man for the job. And she's disappointed to find that he was unable to best a foe that Legacy Spider-Man made a routine of beating. It's hard to overstate how badly she needs that drive back in their hands, and as for now, that is his #1 priority. Ben says that he understands, but he doesn't love the whole cloak and dagger that she is being about what is on that drive. Maxine tells him, I know exactly the information that you need to operate at 100% capacity as a Beyond asset. Now get back out there. But while Ben is recovering from his fight with Dr. Ock, across town at Beyond HQ, a man walks up to the front desk. I am here to see Maxine Danger. The security officer tells him that he doesn't see any scheduled visits for Miss Danger, but the man tells him, that's no problem. Otto then leads over the counter stating, this visit is something of a surprise. Ben races across town as Otto casually makes his way through the Beyond security and into the R&D departments when he stumbles upon something unsettling. He looks at the sign asking, they dare! What on earth is the sandwich department and why is it room 1? Are there more? The door opens and a BLT tells him, release us, oh bunless one, and we will grant you wishes 3. Otto slams the door shouting, egads! Several floors later, Otto looks at a jar of pills stating that these are nothing but glorified hangover pills. Another waste. Then a voice calls out telling him that he hope he has a prescription for those. Otto looks back to see Misty Knight telling him that she's gonna warn him. The side effects might include kicking his butt. And Colleen whispers, hey, you're better than that pun. After a rather quick tussle, Otto grabs a hold of Misty, throwing her into Colleen, locking them in the lab, telling them, sit tight. I'll return once my business is finished. Up in Maxine's office, the security rushes to barricade the entrance, telling Maxine that she needs to go to the safe room, but Maxine says that she refuses to waste a perfectly good safe room on a temper tantrum from Otto Octavius. As the door is shut, she can hear the screams and shouts of the security officers as she just folds her arms, watching. Suddenly, the metal doors are ripped apart and Otto leans in. I would like to have some words with you! The lies, the manipulation, everything your spider program was built on. Once I take over, I'll see that it's used for its intended purpose. At that moment, the window breaks open as Ben crashes through, telling Otto, you must have missed the sign, but the suggestions box was in the break room. Ben punches Otto back into a wall, and Maxine tells him to try and be careful not to destroy any more of her office. Otto begins to crawl back up, grabbing a hold of Ben, throwing him into another room, stating, you have become too much of a distraction as of late. Ben stands back up, telling him, don't worry, it's all going according to plan. This room is quite special, you see. With a snap of Ben's fingers, the weapons room lights up, and Ben grabs a hold of a magnetic gun, firing it, shorting out Otto's mechanical arms. As the spinnerets then wrap themselves around the weakened arms, Ben delivers a solid punch to his face, with Otto falling back. Something about you has changed. No matter though, this farce has gone on long enough. Otto presses a button and his harness falls off, but then springs to life, launching itself at Ben. Ben manages to grab a hold of it with his webbing, tossing it to the side before it has a chance to explode, but then uses the massive hole that it created to throw them both out of it. They both tumble down, with Otto yelling, "You will kill both of us!" But they land on the nearby rooftop, with Ben telling him, "Bet that looked pretty cool." Otto begins to laugh. "You are so naive, you don't even know that you are in a box. But you are nothing more than veal, a calf fattened up by Maxine and her people, to think that you could offer any worth beyond being a highly suggestible whelp." Ben clenches his fist, punching Otto. "Shut up! No more lies, no more games. I'll prove to you, to everyone, that I'm here for a reason and that I belong and that I get results." Ben continues to punch, but Otto continues laughing. "You're a fool, a damned fool! Beyond didn't choose you because of your strong will, but because you are psychologically compromised, because you are weak, an easily controlled lapdog prone to emotional outbursts and distractions whose leash ends in Beyond's hands. Don't believe me? I have proof. The data drive containing all of Maxine and Beyond's secrets. I barely even had to scratch the surface. The security protocols have been disabled. No one will know that it has been opened. Its contents are only known to me and me alone." Otto holds out the drive and Ben takes it. "You're lying. I've done so much good. I'm not gonna let you take this away from me, Otto." But Otto stands up, straightening his coat. "I am many things, but a liar is not one of them. You can see the details of your psych profile compiled by Beyond Psychologist yourself." Ben begins to scan through the drive and Otto begins to walk off. "Goodbye. May you enjoy your win, Spiderman." Later, Ben returns to Maxine, and she asks, after intercepting Otto, the ensuing battle led to not only Otto's escape, but the loss of the data drive? Ben tells her, "That's correct. Otto's belt was armed and was set to self-destruct along with the drive." Maxine tells him that that is unfortunate, though it's better destroyed than in the hands of a lunatic. Adequate job. Ben turns to leave, and then he stops. "Why did Beyond choose me?" Maxine tells him because of his determination and strong will. He nods. "Right. Thank you for the honesty. Time I get back home, Maxine." Later, Ben returns to his apartment with Janine, but as Janine asks if everything's okay, Ben hands her his mask, telling her that everything is great. He just needs her to wash his mask for him. It got a little dirty from all the punching. Don't lose it. Anyway, long day. Gonna go take the world's longest shower. Once in the bathroom, Ben looks at himself in the mirror, punching it, creating a hole similar to the one that he saw Uncle Ben with. After Ben Reilly's recent fight with Doc Ock, it left his mind wandering, causing him to act out in a much harsher manner than Spider-Man is known for. And as he sits in his psych evaluation, Dr. Kefka says, "Okay, 2 floors lost to fire damage, 3 more to smoke. Our support crew sustained minor injuries during the evacuation. People could have been seriously hurt, Ben." And Ben tells her, "Yeah, but they weren't." And Dr. Kefka asks what is going on with him. He's been lashing out, rushing into situations before even getting briefed as to what's going on. And Ben tells her that he has a lot in his mind. About this place, about the Beyond Company. Meanwhile, 2 floors up, Janine sits at the edge of her bed staring at the dresser, thinking back to what Ben told her. When he handed her his mask to wash, the data drive was in it, and he whispered that they're lying to us. Janine gets up and goes to open the drawer, but then she stops, sitting back on the bed. Back downstairs, Dr. Kefka tells Ben that he needs to talk to her, and Ben tells her no, she works for them. And right now he doesn't trust Beyond, not anymore. Dr. Kefka asks if she can tell him a secret. It's that she doesn't trust them either, and that's why she negotiated 100% autonomy as a condition of her employment. It was important that she be able to treat patients as she sees without corporate interference. But elsewhere on another floor, Maxine is watching. Wow, she actually believed we did that. Ben then says that Otto Octavius has broken the encryption on the drive. His dossier was right there. Everything Beyond thought about him. Ben Reilly had a malleable morality, personality less defined, a hunger for meaning which makes him easily manipulated. He's always known that something is wrong with him. Comes down with the territory when... And Ben begins to trail off with Dr. Kefka stating, "You're a clone." Ben stops. "Wait, what? No, I'm not a clone!" And Dr. Kefka stares at him. "I've never told anyone." She tells him that that's not true. He told them about how he was resurrected and killed again and again by the Jackal, after taking on the Spider-Man mantle before bringing others back, others like her. Ben thinks for a moment. I don't remember any of that. And Dr. Kefka tells him because they wanted Spider-Man squeaky clean. They wiped out the memories of him being the Jackal, of him dying over and over and over, of him being a puppet of the Jackal, because they felt that that made him more complicated. They wiped his mind clean. Ben Reilly pauses. "Wait, they took my memories?" And Dr. Kefka tells him that it was at his request. They removed the more problematic adventures from his temporal lobe. But she put an end to it all when she arrived. It was too dangerous. As clones, their life experience are enmeshed in a scaffolding of implanted memories. Pull the wrong string and you risk losing all of the important parts, the basis of a clone's personality. That's why she's going to stitch his mind back together. That's why he has been acting out during his missions. Ben tells her no, it's not. The drive that Otto stole, there was other stuff on it. Documents on hundreds of shell companies. Beyond is almost chaotically diversified. And that chaos is a cover. The superhero game isn't the only one that they're playing. We're all in danger. We've got to protect ourselves. Dr. Kefka asks what is he saying, and just as Ben begins to state that the UFOs weren't, Maxine presses a button stating, "Enough of that." And at that moment, a high-pitched siren goes off in Ben's mind, and the building's automated defense turrets open fire, shooting Ben with dozens of tranq darts. Dr. Kefka yells out that they promised they wouldn't spy, but then Maxine walks in telling the doctors to grab him and bring him to Memo surgery. Dr. Kefka screams that they lied. Don't do this to him again. Back with Janine. Marcus stops by to tell her that they're doing some work with Ben and he won't be back for a bit, but he wanted to tell her so that she stays put. She calls out from the other room that it's not like she can go anywhere, and Marcus tells her, "Well, we think it's best for you with your history." Janine walks out of the room grabbing Marcus and holding a knife to his neck, stating, "Because of all the years I spent in prison with other murderers like me?" Meanwhile, downstairs, Ben is laid out on a table, hooked up to a machine, the one that will wipe out his memories, and Maxine says that they can start by scrubbing Octavius's little pep talk and move forward from there. Inside of Ben's mind, we begin to see the holes appearing in front of everyone's faces and the data drive fading into nothing. And with this process continuing to work, a doctor tells Maxine that Marcus is asking for security clearance to leave with a guest. He seemed rather adamant. Maxine tells him whatever, it's fine. We still need to... Wait, why are we back here? On the screen, it shows Ben running into Peter, and the doctor says that that was a spontaneous jump. But as those memories of Ben running into Peter begin to fade, Maxine yells, "Stop pulling the threads!" But the doctor says that he isn't. This isn't a demolition. His mind is collapsing. Ben Reilly is losing all of his memories. Meanwhile, as an entire bar turns to watch, Black Cat asks what is with all of the stares. Your drinking buddy's not used to having such a glamorous lady in here or something? Captain America says that he's pretty sure they aren't used to seeing a glamorous lady put away so many chicken wings. Black Cat then says, look, he is going to get back out there. Nothing is going to stop him. He's Spider-Man, but he's not ready. If he's not ready when he gets back out there, Spider-Man is going to get himself killed. So we need to make him ready, because I don't want him to die. Cap tells her that he's in. They'll go get him ready. So the next day, Black Cat and Captain America bring Peter to a rooftop telling him, all right, class is in session. We both know that you're dying to get back to it, but you're not going to, not until you pass our test. Peter looks at them. Okay, but it feels a little weird without, the Spider-Man suit. Black Cat tells him, well, you can't have the suit, not until you're ready. Right now, that other guy, he's Spider-Man. So training begins, and Peter begins to wear a paper bag to hide his identity. They go for a few days until they finally get to an exercise to capture Black Cat. But seeing Peter getting winded and hardly being able to stand, she looks at him. Okay, we'll take a breather. She begins to go through her backpack, stating that there should be some water and orange slices in here, and Peter wheezes. I thought you only drank champagne. She tosses him a bottle of water, telling him, yeah, well, Captain America packed the bag. Peter sits down and Black Cat asks, what was that out there? He's got to be better. During this training, he was only showing like 75%. His 75% should be equal to her 100. He has superpowers and she doesn't. Peter laughs, asking if she had powers at one point, and she shrugs. Sure, little bad luck here and there, big deal. But you're Spider-Man. You can do whatever a spider can. You want to get back out there again? You need to shape up. So with a little pep talk from Black Cat, the next night, Peter and Cap wait for Black Cat to arrive, with Cap stating that he doesn't know why she couldn't just give him the mask. Peter yells through his paper bag, "That's what I'm saying, Cap!" But as Black Cat appears, she says, "Hey everyone, brought some friends, Bruno and Doc. They're gonna help with tonight's exercise." This is about working together, and make sure that Cap doesn't bonk you on the head again, Peter. As Black Cat gets into the car, Peter asks, "So, what are we doing?" She tells him that he has to catch the crooks, because they just robbed this place. Here you go. The car speeds off, and after a quick glance at each other, Peter and Cap take off running. Training continues night after night until Peter is finally set off on his own. He tracks down a pair of robbers and begins to take them down, until one punches his mask off and the other grabs him in a headlock. He begins patting the arm, yelling, "Uncle, Uncle!" And as he's let go, Black Cat and Cap take off their ski masks. "Just a minute there, son. We'll run it again when you're ready." But Peter can see their faces. They are disappointed. They're second-guessing themselves. And him? He should have done better. He has to do better. He laughs, catching his breath, stating that he can never give up. He's good. So let's go again. And the training continues. Failure after failure. Disappointment after disappointment. Meanwhile, over at MJ's apartment, she unlocks the door to find somebody already sitting inside in the darkness. And Janine holds up the data drive. "We gotta talk, Mary Jane." And back over with Ben Reilly, while Peter Parker is training and Mary Jane is dealing with Janine. Ben's recent memory wipe is becoming more of a memory failure. Maxine and the Beyond Scientist had to re-implant his memories from scratch. Of course, they had to leave out a few key encounters that they were unaware of. As Maxine's day begins, she briefs Ben that during his recovery, Janine had disappeared and was hoping that he might have some idea as to why. Ben says, "I don't know a thing." Later, Maxine is then speaking with Marcus, which unbeknownst to Ben was the one who helped Janine escape. Marcus tells Maxine that she had a knife to his throat, and that he didn't have much choice. He has no idea why Janine was trying to leave the building. But Maxine stops him, stating, "I know why. She has something of ours." Next, she goes to meet with the board, which, given the circumstances, the board's not exactly happy that the drive in question could be potentially wiped with a third of their holdings. And they are demanding that she fix this because she let the Hero Division get away from her. However, Maxine tells them, or she has given them a chance to begin testing. She'll be executing the Halifax Protocol. That was the point of their second division, yes? The board informs her that the division is not hers, not yet. But Maxine says that if she fails, she will assume full responsibility. Once the meeting concludes, a scientist states that the substance was highly metaphysical in structure, and they have to bring in people from across the company to handle this. Maxine asks if it was as advertised. Can they use this to create villains? Another scientist tells her yes. The substance is in fact the sins of Norman Osborn. So 1 hour and 30 minutes later, Maxine stares through the glass at the new creation that she has made, the villain, stating that that is fantastic. A red clawed hand slams against the window and Maxine places her hand over it, telling her, "Look at you, my queen Goblin. Yes, that sounds good. And they said that we couldn't do villains." So a short while later, after everything is in place, Maxine returns to Marcus's holding cell, telling him that she's sorry to keep him waiting, but today is going to be a good day. Marcus says that he's still not sure if he's allowed to leave. Is he allowed to leave? Maxine sits down, kicking her feet up, telling him that their little jailbird has given them the perfect excuse to execute a product that she has been working on for the past few months. Over at the Daily Bugle, MJ tells Glory Grant that she appreciates them meeting her like this. She'd like to introduce Janine Godby. But as MJ does that, back at Beyond, Ben is sent out on the field with a new villain that just appeared. Though he can feel that something is different, like his memory is off, like he can't remember certain things. Over at the Bugle, MJ and Janine sit in Glory's office, and Janine says that she doesn't think Glory believed her. MJ assures her that she did, but these allegations are big. Glory just needs to run it upstairs. Janine then begins to look through Glory's desk, and MJ asks what is she doing. Janine closes a drawer, stating that she was checking for bugs, just in case. You know, Beyond has a lot of subsidiaries. But MJ notices something getting closer to the window from the outside when suddenly the glass window shatters open. The Goblin Queen begins to laugh, and MJ asks if she's here for her or Janine. The Goblin Queen smiles. Neither! And she looks down at the data drive. Janine throws herself at it, yelling that they can't win this time. But the Queen Goblin tells her, I'm not looking to win. I just want to see your brain! She takes a swing with her mace, but then feels a tug of webbing pulling it back as Ben says, I wanted to say something outrageous for my big entrance, but the brain comment really killed the vibe. Queen Goblin swipes at him again, shouting, You are never funny! And Ben ducks and then punches her. Come on, it would have been funnier than this. Just then, Queen Goblin's glider splits into two, rocketing towards Ben with the first narrowly missing, but then the second one slamming him into a desk. Queen Goblin charges at Janine, but before she could grab her, Ben webs up Janine and yanks her out of the way. As Janine is flung back, she drops the drive and Queen Goblin stomps on it. Janine yells, No! They always win! And Ben shrugs. No, not yet. And then he throws the desk that he was thrown into at Queen Goblin. MJ looks into the next room stating, Hey, Queen Goblin's getting up. And Janine asks, What are you going to do? Ben looks back. The way I see it, this is an our problem. He webs out as Janine asks, What is he saying? She's dangerous. And Ben tells her, Right, so we better get out of here. As we realize that one of the core memories that was not put back into his mind is that with great power also comes great responsibility. MJ watches as Spider-Man Ben Reilly just leaves, and Queen Goblin begins to laugh. Don't worry, I'm still here. As the Queen Goblin continues her assault on the Daily Bugle and Ben Reilly seemingly running away from the fight, Peter Parker gets to work at McCarthy Medical Center trying to get back to being the original wall crawler after his run-in with the UFOs. Even though his physical therapy is going well as far as his nurse is concerned, he has been quietly sneaking out throughout the week to train with Black Cat and Captain America to get him back to his former self. And after all of that, he sees on the TV reports of a Goblin attack. Peter yells out, Goblin, I gotta get out there. But Black Cat stops him, telling him that he can let someone else handle this one. And Peter looks right at her dead in the eyes. You know that's not my style, Cat. Black Cat tells him he's not ready, but seeing Peter not backing down, she tells him, fine. You think you're ready for this? She drops one of the web shooters on the table, stating that if he can get it, he can go. But before he could grab that web shooter, she uses the other web shooter to effectively wrap Peter in a cocoon in his bed and leaves him there. Moments later, at the Daily Bugle, rescue crews arrive to try and save all of those that they can while MJ is dangling out of this broken building. Queen Goblin flies up. Oh look, the not-so-famous Mary Jane Watson! I was just on my way out, but I could always stop to chat with someone like you. A failed actor, a nightclub proprietor, a Stark employee. We have a lot to work through, and there is a new therapeutic option that I've been working on. Queen Goblin jets down, grabbing MJ by the face, asking, Would you care to see the Goblin gaze? Just be warned, it can be a little intense. As her eyes light up, MJ helplessly stares into them when suddenly a man screams for help that he is slipping. Queen Goblin looks over at the man, stating that admitting his problem is the first step to freedom, and she blasts him, asking who is next. MJ punches the Queen with all the strength that she has. And the Goblin Queen looks back at her angry. You dare raise a hand to the Queen! A voice asks, a hand? How about a foot? And Black Cat swings and dropping a kick straight to Queen Goblin's face, throwing her off balance, freeing MJ in the process. Once they get MJ back to solid ground, Black Cat asks what is going on. And MJ explains that she was helping Ben's girlfriend blow the whistle on Beyond, but then this Queen Goblin showed up and destroyed the evidence along with half the building. Ben came to rescue Janine, but then he just left. Black Cat says that doesn't sound like Spider-Man. I'm sure he'll be back. But just then, Black Cat is struck with the spiked mace and Queen Goblin pulls her up. I need to try my new gaze on someone, and that someone is you. As Queen Goblin stares into Black Cat's eyes, she begins to see all of the world change and her greatest fears come to life. Everything that she has done in her life is now a failure. She discovers that she is an awful friend, a forgettable lover, and a disappointment as a daughter. Queen Goblin tells her there's only one option to recovery. Yes, the world would be a much better place without you. Just one small step and it'll all be over. And Queen Goblin's glider splits in two as it's hovering over the city, and with Black Cat stuck in her trance, she looks as if she's about to walk off of it. She takes a step and begins to plummet, but popping the tears that are falling off of her face, a web shoots through, grabbing her. She looks up. Spider-Man? MJ was worried that he... And MJ yells that isn't Ben. It's Peter! Up on the building, still in his hospital gown, Peter begins to struggle to pull Black Cat up, telling himself, just focus. Don't worry about the white knuckle, body shaking, face melting, searing hot pain! But after bringing Black Cat up to the ledge with MJ, Black Cat says that she is sorry for second-guessing his resolve back at the hospital. And Peter tells her, you don't owe me a thing. But before the three of them could actually relax, there's another explosion as Queen Goblin flies up, and Black Cat warns Peter that she's not like any other goblin. Saving her is one thing, but is he sure that he's ready for this? And Peter suits up. Cat, that's my secret. I was never ready. Black Cat checks with him, are you ready for this? And Peter tells her, don't worry, remember, I broke out of the webs, didn't I? But what Black Cat and MJ don't know is Peter did break out of those webs with the help of Janine. Meanwhile, over at Beyond, Maxine Danger yells at her staff that they need to find Ben. Where did Ben Reilly go? Using the GPS in his suit, she declared that she knows that Ben can hear her. They don't want to make Janine a fugitive all over again, do they? Ben reached up, turning the comms off, and Janine asks if they're really gonna lock her up again. Ben tells her not if he can help it. They got bigger problems right now, though. That's beyond themselves. Janine asks, what about the Goblin? Him leaving the Goblin isn't like him. Ben says Beyond will just spin it however they want and paint them to be the bad guys. Probably already have. Burning down Beyond is the only way that they'll ever be free of all of this. She tells him that she's still worried about him. It's like something is missing. Ben takes off his mask. Beyond has been taking my memories from me. There are little gaps here and there, all for Beyond to fill in later. I just need to focus right now. We need to find a way to stop them before they can make everything disappear too. You understand, right? She pauses for a moment, turning away, and then looks back, stating, Staten Island. Ben is curious what's going on, and she explains that Beyond is the one orchestrating the supervillain program, the ones that have been fighting against him all of these months. There is a facility on Staten Island. That's where they made the Queen Goblin, and that's why she was after the drive that Janine took, but it was destroyed before she could blow the whistle. Ben thwips, telling her, well, that is where we're going to go once I find somewhere safe to put you. And Janine tells him to drop her off at McCarthy Medical Center. She has some things to take care of. Now back at the Bugle, Peter is fighting Queen Goblin, trying to come up with his normal quips, but the searing pain makes it hard to concentrate. And he ends up just stating that the Goblin thing has been done to death. Queen Goblin says, so many goblins. It must frighten you dearly, but as much as I'd love to stay and chat about it, I'm afraid that our time is up. She begins to rocket off, and with already running low web shooters, Peter fires the last of his webbing right into her glider and gets a yank behind her. As she takes off through a nearby office building, dragging Peter, she asks, are you hanging on to the past? We have a better Spider-Man now. The sooner you accept that, the sooner we can all move on. Peter bounces off a desk. Ouch! Right in my imposter syndrome. Queen Goblin continues to weave in and out of the building, slamming Peter into them every chance that she gets, but Peter reaches out, managing to grab a hold of a pipe and whips the glider into a highway sign. She shouts, taking off over the open waters, knowing that Peter doesn't have much of a chance here, but Peter swings himself in the way to throw himself right at the Queen herself. As he lets go, the Queen then grabs him. There, right where I wanted you! But before Peter can even ask, she stares into his eyes to unleash the Goblin's gaze. And just like with Black Cat, the world changes to all of Peter's insecurities and fears about how he'll never be good enough, about how he always loses the ones that he loves, how he lost Harry, Flash, Gwen, his friends and family all telling him that he isn't the man that he thinks he is, that he's irresponsible, that this is his rock bottom. But then a voice tells him, it's kind of our thing though, isn't it? Peter asks, is that Ben? Ben tells him to remember back to the hospital. He was willing to share everything with them, even if it meant not being the better Spider-Man. He expects people to help, but he doesn't really know how to ask for help. At least, that's what his therapist says. Anyway, this is me asking. Peter thinks to himself that Ben does deserve to be Spider-Man and tells him one last thing. Go out there and be amazing. Ben responded during that stay in the hospital, telling him that they both are Spider-Man, and that if he deserves to be Spider-Man, they both can. Never give up. Peter finds himself at the bottom of the water. drowning in his own insecurities, and it's that memory that gives him the strength to push off of it and launch himself straight into the air. He bursts out of the water, delivering a punch that sends Queen Goblin off of her glider. The glider itself says to protect the queen, picking her up out of the water, but Peter notices that she dropped her crown. A short while later, after being picked up, Black Cat asks when does the Coast Guard moonlight as Uber? And Peter says that he just had to promise to get the real Spider-Man to give them a recruitment shout out on Twitter. But while drying off, MJ tells everyone to be quiet for a second. The crown is saying something. Everyone listens, and a message begins to play from Maxine stating that Spider-Man is no longer viable. Initiate backdraft protocol for Staten Island facility. MJ wonders what that means. Peter says that it's for Ben. Ben Reilly is in real trouble. And he isn't 100%, he's more like 50% at this point. MJ tells him that if that's the case, between the two of them, they make one whole Spider-Man, right? Peter tells her that he loves when she talks math. Later, over on Staten Island, Ben swings, landing on a building, but stops for a moment, stating that he almost missed that. He takes off his mask, telling himself to focus. Remember who you are. Remember what they took from you. He looks at his mask, seeing a face, and then Peter says, "Hello? Earth to Spider-Man." Ben turns, asking. And Peter takes his mask, telling him it's Peter. He takes a moment, but then looks at him. "Oh, Peter, look at you. All amazing again. Great for you, buddy." Peter then says that he spoke with Janine. She's worried. They both are. Do you need some help, Ben? Ben says that depends. Can he not get himself nuked this time? Peter looks at him. No promises. They both whip onto the next building and begin swinging, with Peter stating, "Try and stop me." And Peter tells him that he wouldn't dream of it, bro. Once inside the supervillain program facility, Ben and Peter begin to make their way through it when Ben's responses begin to feel a bit off. His memories have been wiped out recently, and core components that make Peter Parker Spider-Man are missing from Ben Reilly, his clone's memories. Peter begins to web up a mechanical spider that Ben missed, asking him if everything's all right. And though Ben tells him yeah, in his head he's thinking it's really not. He's not all there. Peter's still a little confused as to what has been going on because he's been in the hospital, but tells Ben that it's clear that Beyond was up to no good. Did you see that chicken man back there? He had boxing gloves. So if either of us are going to get out of here alive, we gotta work together, Ben. Ben gets up, taking Peter's hand, telling him that he can do that. We can do that, Pete. The two get to work, whipping everything in sight, and once they finish, Peter says that it's almost like an art working with him. And as Ben looks back to Peter Parker, he sees the familiar void where Peter's face should be. Still not fully piecing together who Peter Parker is. That memory is missing from his head. He doesn't know who Peter is. Peter asks him what's wrong, and Ben says that it's nothing. He's fine. And after that, Peter turns back to move on, but notices an adorable little cat-like creature with big ears sitting there. It meeps, and Peter comments how cute it is, and then it grows, razor-sharp fangs, and a dozen more creep out of the shadows. Crap, I should have known. Too cute is always a red flag. Ben, little help? As the creatures all pile on and begin to bite Peter, Ben shakes his head, stating that he has to get it together. These things aren't real. Except they are. He doesn't know what's real anymore. He eventually fires off a few quick web shots that plaster the creatures all over the walls, and Peter tells him thanks. You, good? Ben tells him he isn't really. Peter tells him not to worry, he's been there. And Ben asks, you have? And Peter looks at him inquisitively. You know I have. But Ben can't remember. The two begin to work their way deeper into the facility, with Peter's spider sense going off, when suddenly a red car comes crashing through the ceiling. In the driver's seat is Colleen Wing, laughing, stating that she didn't know the car could fly! And Misty tells her, I'm pretty sure we're not flying, we're falling, Colleen! As the car crashes into the middle of the warehouse, Misty gets out, looking at the two Spider-Men. Hello, Spiders, we're here to help get this under control. But what's the real story here? Peter points up, telling her, well, maybe if you didn't put a giant escape hatch in the ceiling, we'd be okay. And Ben tells them, yeah, these things being trapped in here may be the only advantage that we had. The two spiders begin to plug up the hole with webbing, and the four of them continue to start to clean up the remaining monsters being kept in the supervillain facility. But halfway through, Ben says he has a better idea, running over to the computer terminal. He hacks into the system when he's suddenly kicked out, and a projection of Maxine tells him to come back. It's not too late to fix this, Ben. Ben looks at the woman that has been ripping memories out of his mind, the one that tricked him into working for her, and informs her that she is insane. What you're doing here is straight up villain stuff. She tells him to stop before it gets worse. She has teams en route to help clean all of this up. We can work this out. And Ben turns to her. Or what? If not, I can open up door Z. Ben pauses for a moment. You know what? Don't bother. I'll do it for you. He activates the console as Maxine is shouting, asking what is he doing? And Ben tells her that he no longer cares what's in there. He only cares about Maxine and he's coming for her. For answers. She better hope that he likes what he finds. Or she might want to start running. Alarms begin to blare across the entire facility as Peter, Misty, and Colleen are beginning to wonder what is even going on. They turn back to Ben Reilly, who throws a small explosive up, creating a hole that he can escape out of. I'm sorry, but I can't have any of you getting in my way. Everyone watches and Peter realizes that Ben is leaving. And Misty says that he's in more trouble than she thought. Once Ben leaves, it's just the three of them and everyone gathers around door Z speculating what is behind it and what just got freed. And why it's taking an awful long time to open up. After several dramatic minutes later, the giant steel door begins to pull open and a faint growling can be heard, and through the misty shadows, Doc Connor's lizard steps out roaring. Misty tells him, okay, this is worse. Peter asks, Connor, what have they done to you? Peter and the Daughters of the Dragon are now about to fight a much more brutal and altered version of Doc Connors. He's savage, he's brutal, and he has wings, and he's also choking Peter at this point. Colleen tells Peter to relax, she'll take care of this, and she swings her katana, hacking off one of his arms. Misty asks if they're sure this is actually Connor's, and Peter begins to try and pry the hand that is around his neck off of his body. Sure, no, but we should know any second now. As another arm shoots out, replacing the missing one, Peter looks at them. Yeah, regenerating limbs. That is in fact Doc Connors. The lizard roars as it begins to charge up once more, forcing everyone into another room where they find the real reason for the sudden change in Connors. On the operating table before them, Morbius is laid out, hooked up to several tubes and wires, and Colleen yells, "That's it! We're fighting a vampire lizard, Doc Connors!" Misty and Colleen look over at Morbius's body, and the two Daughters of the Dragon get to work unhooking Morbius when suddenly he lunges up, gasping for air. They both draw their weapons, asking if he's feeling normal, and Morbius takes off the rest of the tubes, telling them, I am myself again. Even though Beyond stabilized me, they did so that they could experiment on me and take samples. At this moment, the vampiric creature Z continues pounding away at the door, and Peter asks if that was the case, how about you lend us a hand with the vampire lizard that's about to break through the door, Morbius? But while Peter gains an unlikely ally in Morbius, over in Ben's apartment, he finishes taking up the kill team that was sent for him, stating that Peter and them wouldn't have understood. So explaining what he's going through is pointless. He needs his memories back. The ones that they took that were originally Peter's. The ones that tell Ben Reilly who he is, how he's supposed to live. He isn't a bad person. He just needs the memories. This is where they've been keeping them. This is where they're keeping them from him. And he's going to get them all back. Back in the lab, there's a moment of silence as Peter asks if the banging stopped. And Colleen says, all right, good work, everyone. And Peter realizes no. That means that Creature Z isn't after us. It must be escaping the facility. Misty reloads her gun, telling him that they can deal with that. Her, Colleen, and Mike. We'll call Auntie Monica to clean that up too. You go after Ben, Peter. Everyone hurries out and Morbius asks, who is Mike? Colleen says that that's him. Morbius tells her, I prefer Michael or Dr. Morbius. Colleen tells him, sure, whatever you say, Mike. But back with Ben, he finds Janine, his girlfriend, and tells her that they need to get out of there. Everything has gone to hell and there's no coming back from it. Janine tells him that this arrangement was always too good to be true. Her out of prison, him as Spider-Man, they both knew that they shouldn't have said it out loud. However, back at the Beyond headquarters, Maxine reaches out to the one person that she knows that might be able to help her with the most minimal damage, Marcus. She tells him that Ben needs him and that there's no one else better suited for the task. Marcus, Ben's original handler, laughs, stating, unbelievable, after all the things, and Maxine shushes him. Look, you can think whatever you want, but Ben is still in your care. Are you going to help him or not? Back over at the apartment, Ben follows Janine, asking if she knows where she's going, and Janine tells him yeah, she knows a lot more about this place than Beyond thinks. She'll go find Marcus and get him clear before they burn this place to the ground. And this is where they part. Ben gives Janine one last kiss, telling her that he doesn't remember right from wrong. He doesn't remember the lessons that taught him to live. But Janine, all of his memories of her, Those are his. Only his. That's what he's got to anchor him. He's not a bad person. He can't be. For her. Because she's had enough bad people in her life. So it's time to get his memories back and be who Ben Reilly should be. Meanwhile, Peter Parker is following Ben Reilly and the Daughters of the Dragon are taking care of Creature Z. While this is going on, Auntie Monica gets to work cleaning up Beyond's Staten Island facility full of villain prototypes. Using her powers as the former Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau cracks her knuckles and flies in, making what others would consider tough seem like a walk in the park. But the villains aren't a problem. If she was to hit Beyond where it would hurt, she would need help from someone within a villain of sorts. She's already taken down Beyond's facilities 3 times, but for this kind of work, the getting your hands dirty and burning down a multinational conglomerate, she's going to need someone truly unlikable. Enter Machine Man. As Monica opens up the door, a down-on-his-luck Machine Man tells her, "Go away, fleshy one! Can't you see that I want to be alone with all my beer cans everywhere? Just leave me alone!" Monica asks, what is it this time? And Machine Man says that his girlfriend left him. So I thought, what the hell? Maybe I can be a supervillain. That'd show her. So I joined the Beyond Villain program, but it turns out that I'm too depressed even for that. Did you know that I'm not the real Machine Man? The machine may be cold and emotionless, but the man, oh, the man! After listening to his sob story, Monica rushes in, kicking Machine Man, telling him, "You're a stupid, stupid robot. Do you really think I care about your feelings? I came here to get you to help me." And with that, Machine Man and Monica Rambeau begin to punch through all of the villains. Machine Man uses propellers in his heads, extending his arms while Monica Rambeau is using her super strength and Captain Marvel-like powers to remove everything. And as they're tearing apart the facility, a projection of Maxine appears, wondering just who is Monica Rambeau? And she smiles, telling her, "I just want you to know that it was all me. Tell whoever you work for that I am the one who disassembled your entire operation and facility. I've been working behind the scenes this whole time. And the Daughters of the Dragon, the ones that you hired, they were working for me the whole time. I'm the one they were feeding information to. And that's why you don't have the Heart Star. And that's why you've been undermined, Maxine. All to take you down." Maxine stares for a moment and realizes that while she was dealing with Ben and Peter, Monica Rambeau has this entire time been dismantling the Beyond Corporation. With that, there's an explosion in the facility and the entire facility burns down, leaving just Monica and Machine Man to see the rubble staring at it. Machine Man asks Monica what's next, and she tells him that Beyond still has a lot of mad science sites. How about they go and do it all over again? But back with our heroes, the main people of this story. Fighting through droves of security forces at Beyond, Ben Reilly finally manages to break into the inner labs where he finds Maxine just casually looking at one of the lab's devices. Ben storms in shouting, "What did you do to my memories? What did you do?" And Maxine tells him, "Grow up. No one did anything to you. You knew the risks of our procedures. You and Kefka saw that no copies of your implanted memories would be held, all to protect your friend's identity. So we both agree that you messed this up. So the only question remains, do you have the courage to fix it, Ben? If you want to heal, then you will need to acquire the memories that are locked away in your friend's brain, which conveniently enough, Peter Parker is already on site. This machine here can take the memories from the original source, and I'll see that they're put back to where they belong. Surely your friend would be willing to help. But if he doesn't, Ben lunges at the hologram shouting, "Peter is my friend!" Maxine asks, "Is he? I'm offering you a chance to be whole again. Will your friend do the same? After all, they're his memories." And just like that, the hologram fades and Ben is left by himself with the memory machine. A short while later, Peter follows a pair of guards getting ready to go after him when he notices one of their guns, the Infantizer, is missing off of the rack. The guard asks who took it, and the other sighs, stating that this is why they have protocols. But before Peter could do anything, Ben swings in, taking out the guards. Peter looks at his friend. "Are you okay?" And Ben says that he did something bad to his head. "I'm going to need you to put this helmet on, Peter." Peter looks at the device. "Look, I know there's a lot of confusion going on right now, but we can figure this out. There's no way I'm putting that thing on." Ben looks at him angrily. "That's the thing. I'm not asking." In another part of the building, Marcus is being escorted by security when suddenly they stop seeing Janine. Marcus looks up asking, What are you doing here?" And one of the guards yells that she's got a... Wait, what is that? Janine readies the rifle, saying the label said Infantizer. let her know how it feels. And she pulls the trigger, with the guards being blasted with a red light, and then sounds of babies can be heard. Marcus looks around to see all the guards are now babies crying and asking, can we turn them back? Janine tells him, who cares? They were gonna kill us. Marcus nods. Right. Well, I know how to get out of here. And Janine stops him. Who said we're leaving? Back with Peter and Ben, Ben holds out the helmet. I need you to put this on. I've been living my whole life as the other person in my own head. Now there's nothing stopping me from being the first person. Put the helmet on, Peter. Ben then follows up with a powerful uppercut, knocking Ben to the ground, and Ben yells, I don't want to fight, Ben! Ben shouts, don't act like you wanted to help! And Peter screams back at him, all I wanted to do was help! The two throw themselves at each other, shouting as they each take turns punching into one another. But using his own webs against him, Ben pulls on the web that Peter shot into his arms and pulls him in, kicking Peter straight in the chest. Still using that web, Peter flings himself back forward, headbutting Ben, shouting, I don't hate you! But then Ben takes the head-splitting headbutt and kicks off of Peter, grabbing him by the head, slamming him into the ground. I just want what's mine! Deploy Spinneret. A metal coil wraps and binds Peter. Peter telling him, we can figure this out. Just let me help. If you wanted to help, why are you making me do this, Peter? When suddenly there's a warning over the intercom warning that this level has been selected for molecular rearrangement. Legal personnel with credential level 4 and below, please evacuate. For staff 5 and higher, please wait. A green substance begins to pour in and fill the room, with Ben stating that the spinneret is designed to hold him in place. And unlike their webs, it doesn't dissolve. Peter laughs and Ben says, what's so funny? Our webs may dissolve, but at least they don't stick around long enough for me to take them apart and figure out the unlock command. You know, just like I did now. Ben asks, what are you talking about? And Peter says the key phrase, Janine 0414. Suddenly, the spinneret releases its hold, and once free, Peter charges in, telling him, I am sick and tired of your gadgets, and he punches through the helmet. Ben stares for a moment at the pieces. No, that's it. Then I'm gone. I'm nothing. I'm nothing! He screams as he jumps up, tackling Peter to the ground, punching him over and over again, shouting, I hate you! You took everything. You did this to me. Say it. Say it! Peter manages to push Ben off of him, and in doing so, Ben falls off the ledge, landing on the ground where the green goop is slowly beginning to fill. Peter calls out to Ben, but Ben looks up. I'm missing all the parts. I just wanted them back, Peter. Why would I have expected anyone to help me? Peter yells for him to jump up, but Ben stays on the ground as the green liquid begins to cover him up. Goodbye, Peter. Suddenly, there's a giant explosion throwing Peter back, and Marcus yells this way they've got to go. As people outside of the building watch, there's an explosion, and the building begins to sink, and then stops, and one of the bystanders asks if the building just got shorter. A few weeks go by, and Peter and MJ come back from a jog, and MJ says that they're going to start moving to 3 miles starting Monday. Does he think he can handle it? Peter stretches, telling her that that's the plan, and thanks for helping out. He'll be back to normal in no time. MJ tells him that maybe once all of this is settled, he can move in with her. Like, permanently. And Peter laughs, telling her that if she is okay with him being a complete and total mess, sure. But suddenly his spidey sense goes off, and there's a light that shines through the window. A figure appears, stating that a road of blood led you. Come to me. Peter tries to cover his eyes, asking, Who are you? Meanwhile, many more months later, in an unknown location, Ben Reilly is staring at himself in a mirror, seeing an empty void where his own face should be. He tells himself that she'll never leave him and he'll never leave her, and that might be all he knows. He shakes his head, telling himself to stop it, and pulls down a purple mask and makes a wet slopping sound, and once it's on, he begins to scream. No! Stop! Stop it! Janine hurries into the bathroom after hearing a crash, asking what's going on, Ben. But no, Ben is gone, and where he once stood, there is only chasm! And there you go, the conclusion to Spider-Man Beyond. Now, I'm not a big fan of how they ended this one. Ben Reilly is basically a bad guy now, but you know what? It was fun to see him in the Beyond situation for as long as we got to. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.